Hi, I'm Mark. This is Mark Tech Vlogs on YouTube, and today I'm going to bring you guys a review of the Sofabaton X1s Universal Remote Control. Now, a while back I reviewed the Sofabaton U2, and actually that's a product I still use every single day. And a few weeks ago, Sofabaton reached out and said, could we send you the new X1s to review? I said yes, and so for the last few weeks I've been using this new product. I want to say right at the start that whilst I was given this for free, I made it very clear to Sofabaton that I'll be making an honest review, and so these are going to be my honest thoughts on using this remote. And let's start off with price. So this remote isn't cheap, but it does pack a lot in. And if you want to pick one up today, it will cost you around £180. I think that's probably going to be the biggest thing that puts people off this at this time. But as I said, it does have a lot packed in, so let's talk about the core features. So firstly, it has infrared, Bluetooth and Wi-Fi built in. This means it can control a whole variety of devices around your house using those different methods. So it can control your infrared television remote, it can control your Bluetooth Apple TV, and it can even control your Philips Hue lights. And inside there's a learn function, which means it can literally learn any infrared control. This means the devices you can control with this are pretty much infinite. And this device is capable of controlling up to 60 different devices. And you can switch which device you're controlling via the remote itself. You can also control any device that you add to the remote in the Sofabaton smartphone app as well, which means you don't even have to reach for a remote a lot of the time, you can just use the app on your phone. And this is because it communicates with the hub that comes with this device. And then it also packs in activities. This is where you can effectively set up scenes controlling different things at once. So maybe you want to control your TV and turn it on, switch the source, and then start using your Apple TV remote. You can combine all of that and add delays and all sorts, and I'll talk more about that later on. It's also compatible with Amazon and Google voice assistants, although as I don't use either of those, I haven't tested that out. Now, natively out of the box, it is not compatible with Apple Home. It does have a built-in API feature which exposes URLs for triggering activities though. That means you can get it to work in Siri shortcuts, and I'll talk more about that later as well. And as I've already hinted at, and as you've probably already seen, the X1s has a hub and a remote. And that hub comes with some extra infrared relay cables. That allows you to attach them to different places around your room and get maximum reach. The remote itself is charged via USB-C, and Sofabaton say it can last for up to 2 months on one charge. In order to help conserve that battery, it has a lift to wake function on that screen, meaning the screen is only on where you've actually lifted it to use it. And then finally, it also has a tracker mode. That means if you lose it, you can go into the app and trigger the find option, which will get it to make a noise, helping you to easily find where your remote has gone. So let's talk about what you get in the box. So in the box, you get the hub, you get the remote, you get a USB-C cable, another one for charging the remote, you get a charging brick, and then you get the 2 extra infrared relay cables. These have little sticky pads on the bottom for attaching them to surfaces. So let's talk about the design. So the hub has a really nice slim design. And a great thing about having those extra infrared relay cables is that actually you can just tuck the hub away somewhere. That means I've had it tucked away behind my TV and the little relays on the bottom of my television. The only time I've had to access the hub is when I've needed to teach it remotes. The front of the hub has a status light, and the top is where you aim remotes at when you're teaching it. The remote is the main thing to talk about when it comes to design, and I really like the design of this remote. The main thing you notice is how light this remote is, which makes it really comfortable to hold and use. That screen at the top is a really nice size and plenty bright enough as well. Below that screen you've got the scroll wheel, and you generally use that to navigate the screen and to click. And then the buttons on the remote are also backlit. This of course is great for using it in darker settings. And as a whole, this remote looks great, it feels modern, and it's really nice to use. And of course it also has that find function I talked about. This is activated via the app, and it means if you do lose the remote, as all of us do down the side of the sofa, you can get it to make a noise and easily find it. I actually wish all remote controls had this feature. So let's dive deeper into the spec. So as I said, it can control devices via infrared, Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. And it has a really good range in terms of reach of signal. For infrared devices, Sofabaton say there are over 500,000 devices already in their database. And because you can share devices that you add yourself that might be less common, this is getting bigger all of the time. This also means for most things like televisions, you don't have to program those remotes, you just find your model and add it. But if you need to, you can manually program buttons. For Bluetooth devices, it supports Apple TV, Fire TV, Nvidia Shield, Android TV, PlayStation, Chromecast, and a variety of other things as well. And then for Wi-Fi, it is certainly much more limited. There's a promise of more devices coming in the future, but time of recording it supports Roku Wi-Fi devices, Philips Hue and Sonos. That means this device is really compatible with a lot of devices, but certainly more limited with Wi-Fi at the moment. So let's talk about setting it up. So setup is pretty easy. For the most part, you just get it plugged in and open the Sofabaton app and follow the instructions to add your device. This will talk you through connecting to the device, adding it to your Wi-Fi, and doing any firmware updates that need doing. You then program in the remotes you want to. So for infrared remote, you can search for your device based on type and see if it's already in the database. For my TV, it was, so I just simply added it and it worked straight away. If you do need to teach it remotes like more obscure devices, you can. This was the case for my set of speakers. For Bluetooth devices, again, you find your device in the list. You then follow the instructions on the screen. So for my Apple TV, I just had to pair the device with my Apple TV. And then for Wi-Fi, it's going to largely depend on which of the 3 supported devices you use. For me, that's just Philips Hue. This involved pressing the button on my Hue bridge and just adding it that way. This literally took about 5 seconds. And really the whole setup process is just nice and simple. And once you've got it set up, you've got all of your devices listed on the remote and also in your phone app. And you can easily click into them and control whatever device you want to. It's worth talking for a second about some of the Wi-Fi devices. So for example, after adding my Philips Hue, I basically had all of my lights listed on that top screen. What you can do in the app is assign some of those lights to different buttons on the remote. This is a really nice feature to have for easily triggering devices just by switching device. And then when it comes to using it, all of the communication goes from the app to the hub or from remote to the hub. And this makes it really reliable. If you do find that a button isn't quite firing properly, you can go into that remote on the app and go into the repair function. And then we should talk about activities. So if you go into activities, you can combine buttons for common scenes. So maybe you want to turn on your TV, select a particular source and turn on some lights. And then maybe you want to switch the remote to a particular device. And you can do all of that as part of an activity. You can then trigger that activity from your phone or from the actual remote itself. There's also support for an API feature. This gives you a URL you can use to trigger that scene as well. It's worth noting that this is an online URL and not a local URL. But you could take that URL and put it in something like a Siri shortcut. Likewise, you could also use it with something like IFTTT or Home Assistant. This is great for combining it with other things in your house, or maybe even doing things like combining it with something like an NFC tag. So let's talk about using it on a daily basis, which is what I've been doing for the last couple of weeks. So firstly, the weight and design of this remote just makes it really nice to use. And I'm still surprised at how light this remote is. The screen at the top is nice and bright and clear, even on really sunny days. And that scroll wheel makes it really easy to choose what you want to select from it, especially if you can also then click that scroll wheel as well. It's worth noting that scroll wheel only lets you scroll up and down. If you want to go back, use the back button on the top right of the remote. Personally, I think if that scroll wheel was left and right as well, that will create a better user experience. Especially as it would basically let you control the whole thing just from that wheel. In using this remote, I found that it's great at recognising what you're doing and it responds well every single time. And that lift to light up feature really does work every time you pick it up. And actually, whilst it's nice to have the option to control the remotes and the individual buttons in the Sofabaton app on your phone, I found myself reaching for this remote far more than actually using the phone just because how well it works. And it doesn't matter whether you're using an infrared, a Bluetooth or a Wi-Fi device, it's just really responsive. I think the only thing I'd say with the Hue lights is that I think it's more useful to have this alongside an activity than actually controlling them with the remote. Because I still think it's quicker just to ask Siri to do something with my lights rather than picking up a remote. But of course that's going to depend on your home setup. That find feature where it makes a little noise is also a great feature to have, although a little hidden. To find it, you have to go into the app and into Me and then into Settings. There's also the ability in this menu to share your custom remotes, which means that database is getting bigger all the time. The only thing I've personally found slightly tricky is the configuration of activities. And to set up an activity, you hit the plus when you're in the activities section of the app. And whilst it does suggest activities, you can create custom ones. It then prompts you for an input source, which may or may not be applicable. You then confirm a power state, which again may or may not be applicable. And then you select the device buttons you want to control. You then select some other remote buttons and you name it and give it an icon. And it's only really once it's saved that you can customize it even more. This includes things like adding delays. And of course you might want to add a delay if you want to hit the power button and wait a few seconds before you try changing the source. And of course if you do want to use this with something like Siri shortcuts, maybe just for one particular remote command, you're going to have to build an activity and then strip half of it back out again. And I feel like this process almost ought to have an advanced mode where you don't need to have all of these prompts, you can just create something completely new from scratch. I guess that's all relative, but that's just the way I like doing things. All in all, however, what is the verdict on the Sofabaton X1s? This is easily the best multi-device remote control I've used. It's simple to set up, it's really comfortable to hold, and it just works well. And of course, thanks to his infrared relays, you can get full room coverage and tuck the box away. And there's little things just like the quality of the screen and the clickiness of the buttons that just make this feel like a really premium device to use. And being able to toggle every different remote control from this one remote and even run those scenes is just great. Personally, as an Apple user, I think it's a shame there's not some kind of more native built-in Apple support. You can obviously achieve this by shortcuts and those URLs though. And really, given that I use it most of the time via the remote itself anyway, this isn't a deal breaker for me. And I suspect most users will be using it via the remote most of the time rather than the app. If you've got any questions, do stick them below and I'll answer those for you. If you do want to pick one up, I have put a link below as well. That will go to Amazon in whichever country you're in, and that isn't an affiliate link. If you use that link, thank you very much, because that just gives me a small cut of what you spend and helps me keep this channel going. As I said, I was sent this product for free, but I said I would make an honest review, and so I hope that's what you guys feel like you've got today. If you've got any questions, stick them below. Please like this video, subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you guys again soon.